Okay, so our first circular skirt that we're going to do is this one, which is a quarter circle, and you can see here that it's really quite flat through the hip and sits out. This is in calico, so it has a bit of stiffness to it. But one thing you have to keep in mind is the measurement around the hip, because this waist measurement works fine, but it doesn't have a lot of fullness in the hip. So that's something you'll have to calculate, like actually do the pattern and then measure around the hip line to see whether it's going to be big enough for your customer or for your market. That's the only thing. The other ones you don't have to think about it, but for the A-line you do. So what we do then is the skirt piece is based on our measurement, and we have this chart here which shows you, so what's on here is the circumference measurement and then the radius measurement that you need for a full circle, 3/4, half circle and a quarter circle radius. So we've got the measurement on our half scale dummies. We have a 35 centimetre waist. I've got it written down here, so 35 centimetre waist plus the 2 centimetres. Now the 2 centimetres, and this is where we're headed, the 2 centimetres is so that you've actually got a seam down like on here down the centre back. So the 2 centimetres is the seam allowance in here so that you can actually sew it together and put a zip in it. So that means we have to have a 37 centimetre measurement, and if we go down here to 37 centimetres and we go across and we're doing a half circle radius.
Oh no, we're doing quarter.
So quarter, sorry. 37. So quarter circle radius is 23.6 centimeters. Okay, so actually this isn't the one, it's the other one. But anyway, so 23. So actually it's over here. Can you pull that over from me? So 35 centimetres plus seam allowance, which is 2 by 1 centimetre, is 37 centimetres, which gives us a 23.6 centimetre radius. So that's what this is here, and I'll show you just how to do that here. So we start in the corner, and we'll measure down 23.6. Okay, now to get the circle around, you can do this. Some people will say, oh, why don't you use a tape measure with a hole in it? But you do have to be...
That was me, I said that.
I didn't say that.
It's hard. Yeah, it is tricky.
I just find, if you're working with a grading ruler, it's just more accurate, basically.
Yeah,
so that's why, I work with a grading ruler. Because some tape measures, as convenient as they are, some of them actually stretch with wear.
Yeah, they're not as accurate, are they?
No. So I'm just measuring this
Especially
all the way
if they're
around.
old.
So it doesn't take too long to do this, and you do get the more of these marks you put on, the more easier it's going to be to draw the curve, but you can see the curve line there anyway.
And there's your quarter circle.
23.
It's like a big piece of pie.
Exactly, so 23.6. Okay, so now I'm joining this together. Really important that you start at the beginning, that it starts with a right angle onto the seam.
Speedy Gonzales.
A bit of practice. So there's our line. So this is what this line is our waist measurement of 35 plus a centimetre seam allowance on both ends. So you can draw that in here. Oops. Because we obviously want something to sew together. And then, now this line here that we've drawn is the stitch line. So there's no seam allowance on here. There's seam allowance on either edge. There's no seam allowance around the waist. So then you have to come back in when you get very used to doing this, you can actually, find the measurement, the 23.6, like that type of measurement, and then, take a centimetre off that, so you actually, the first line that you draw is this line, but I always find it's better to, draw the actual stitch line and then come back to add the seam allowance onto it. It won't be the end of the world, but it's just a way of being more accurate. So then what happens here, and I'll cut this off.
Of course, if we had a nice big piece of pattern paper, we'd be able to get the full length the whole way around.
Yes, exactly. So you could add a few pieces together to do a full half scale, because obviously, yes, it's not big enough. So we'd need to add more length here and maybe more length here, and then you would measure from this point down to the finished length of your skirt, and mark those points all the way around.
Yeah.
So what happens here though is that this actually sits here, so you can see that shape there, and it's a little bit tight, but there would be, once that seam allowance is sewn up, so that's what creates your quarter circle skirt. And actually, just looking at that, maybe this line here might be interesting anyway. You might use this as an overlayer for a different type of skirt or a pair of pants or something even anyway. But yes, generally it would be even all the way around like this sample.
Or an asymmetric quarter circle skirt,
Exactly.
You get all kinds of interesting things happening with that.
Okay, so that's our quarter circle, and actually having this here, this is the bit that we cut off. Potentially in future you could actually fold a piece of fabric in quarters. So if you had a piece of fabric and folded it this way and then this way, and then sat that in the corner and cut along that line, that would give you the waist measurement for a quarter circle skirt. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you wouldn't actually have to, and then you could just make it whatever length you wanted to, but maybe that's a bit too hands-on,
That would be like a template.
a bit ad lib. Yeah, exactly.